Hi, friends. Allison with Confessions of an Anxious Mom, and here is a Real Talk episode. So last night I tuned into the women's call for Kamala, and it was an awesome call. I got to hear from two incredibly brave women. They're right here behind me. I'm going to share their stories, but first let me introduce them. This is Amanda Zarowski from Texas, and then this is Caitlin Joshua, and she is from Louisiana. Both of these women are incredibly brave. They've been sharing their story across the campaign trail, and they have a lot in common. They both come from states that are heavily impacted by extreme abortion bans, and both suffered medically very severely when they experienced miscarriages. I feel compelled to share their stories because they've inspired me to share my own as well. If you are new to this channel, I've talked about miscarriage before. I am a person who has had two miscarriages myself. Both of my miscarriages were earlier on. One was at 10 weeks, one was at 16 weeks, so second trimester for the second one. My first miscarriage was a miscarriage, so my body didn't recognize that it was experiencing miscarriage for quite a while. And then with a 16-week miscarriage, it just all happened so quickly. However, I count myself extremely lucky because I live in a state that is not impacted by these extreme abortion bans. And this was 10 years ago, where access to abortion care was a right all across the country because of Roe v. Wade. I needed an abortion for both of these miscarriages. I would have never been able to process these miscarriages on my own without medical intervention, without getting severely ill. So I'm incredibly lucky that I got to take advantage of that healthcare right. And this is what's at stake if Trump becomes president in November. Women's rights are already under attack. Roe has already been overturned. But if we have another 4 years of Donald Trump, I can't even imagine actually, I can imagine the devastation that is coming our way because of stories like these women. There are millions of women across this country who are being denied access to the fundamental health care that they need to survive.
Ms. Cami, and thank you all so much for having me tonight. My name is Caitlin Joshua. I'm from Louisiana, where I live with my husband and two kids that I'm currently hiding from. 2 years ago, my husband and I were thrilled to find out I was pregnant. But as soon as I went to make a prenatal appointment here in Louisiana, my healthcare provider said they would not see me until 12 weeks out of fear due to the state's abortion ban. You see, Cami, because Trump overturned Roe, there's a total abortion ban in Louisiana that punishes doctors with a sentence of up to 15 years in prison for providing abortion care. So healthcare providers in the state worried about any liability for miscarriages, which are more common in the first few weeks. Just before I was supposed to have my first prenatal appointment, I began experiencing bleeding and pain worse than childbirth. I immediately went to the emergency room where I was told my fetus had stopped growing. I realized in that moment I was absolutely having a miscarriage, but the healthcare providers were too afraid to even use the word. They sent me home saying they would pray for me. The next day, the pain got worse. I went with my mom and husband to a different hospital where I was turned away yet again. For those that may not know, the standard treatment for a miscarriage, what I was experiencing in that moment is exactly the same treatment as abortion care. And in the second hospital, the staff told me that they were not doing that right now and told me to go home and wait. Ultimately, it took me weeks for me to pass my pregnancy at home alone. I was absolutely terrified, and this experience has made me see how Black women die at alarming rates in this country.
So I live next door in Texas. I live in Austin, and Texas has a similar parole ban. And in the spring of 2022, my husband Josh and I were over the moon thrilled to find out that I was pregnant with our first baby. Then at 18 weeks, unfortunately, I suffered catastrophic complications. My cervix dilated prematurely, and there was no way to safely reverse course. So we were with 100% certainty going to lose our baby girl. And we were devastated. What I needed at that point was an abortion so I could safely begin the healing process. But unfortunately, this was after Texas, this was in Texas after Trump had overturned Roe. So ending the pregnancy would have been considered an illegal abortion, and my doctor would be at risk of jail time. So I was told that I had to wait until I got so sick that my life was considered in danger, which is one of the rare exceptions when a doctor can intervene in Texas. And that's exactly what happened. 3 days later, I crashed into septic shock. After delivering our baby Willow, I crashed again with another bout of sepsis and was transferred to the ICU. I was in the ICU for 3 days. I was in the hospital for a total of a week. and my family flew in from across the country because they were afraid that I wasn't going to make it through the night. And it was when I was still in the hospital in that dark and lonely room when I realized I was actually lucky because I lived. And I knew that others might not be so lucky. And so that's why I started speaking out.
So if these stories don't convince you that women's rights need protecting, I don't know what will. Please vote November.